You don't like drugs because you think that the pharmaceutical companies are just trying to make money off of all of us and that's all they're doing, but you don't even support the most like ideal form of preventative care. I'm guessing. Well, hold on. Let me ask a question. How did you feel about the vaccines?
The vaccines was terrible.
There you go.
Luke, what do you think about the smallpox vaccine?
That's up to the parent whether they want their child to get it or not.
Get smallpox or not?
What do you attribute the dramatic increase in autism diagnosis to?
Why is the chance of getting smallpox so low?
College is a waste of time.
Wait, when did you graduate from college?
2021.
You graduated from college 3 years ago, and you're 24 years old, and you're upset that you can't buy a house right now? Do you see how everything you're saying is like fucking delusional?
Yeah.
The Democrats have done so well. Trump has tried to take credit for things that they've not only done, but that he's tried to destroy. Donald Trump comes out and says things like, I hate price controls, but you better believe he lives at $35 insulin cap. Donald Trump comes out on his first day in office, and just because of McCain manages to fail to pull the plug on the ACA, even goes to the Supreme Court afterwards to get shut down. What does he say now? I like pre-existing conditions.
Luke, where's Stephen wrong?
Do you know that? You don't know that, yeah.
You literally have Trump derangement.
There's a gap here.
You have Trump derangement syndrome.
Stephen, why is Kamala better for the border than Trump?
The easiest and simplest thing to say would be that the Democratic leadership has shown that they can get a bill into Congress that both houses of Congress are willing to pass. Donald Trump was not able to get legislation into Congress to pass anything. So I feel like the Democrats would do a better job at doing something about the border because Donald Trump can't seem to get Congress to get together to pass legislation.
What do you think, Luke?
I mean, there's a lot. I would say the first thing my mind goes to is the bill that actually passed through and is sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk right now, which is HR 2. And the biggest difference between HR 2 and the Senate bill that everybody's talking about is that HR 2 actually addresses the problems, where the Senate bill is just a disguise to make the Democrats look like they're actually doing something for immigration, where the bill itself, the Senate bill I'm talking about, does nothing to change our immigration numbers. And we can get into depth a little bit more about that, but that's my initial response.
So I feel like the problem with HR 2 was that initially Republicans had already supported the bill that Trump pulled the plug on. And it feels like that bill, because it was already supported by Republicans and because Democrats were willing to support it, if it wasn't ready to be passed, which I think it would have been, they could have at least like negotiated on it, but they didn't negotiate on it. They pulled the plug on it completely. And I feel like the problem with HR 2 is HR 2 was a dead on arrival bill and everybody knew it. There was no shot. That bill went way further than the bill that was before Congress that they were going to pass before Trump said no. So I feel like bringing in HR 2 and saying, well, we could do this instead when they knew they'd never get that passed, it just felt disingenuous to me.
Yeah, but I mean, HR 2, when you look into what the details of it are, actually would do something for the border. HR 2 would, I believe it was 22,000 additional Border Patrol agents that they would have at the border. You know, they had an increase in various funding. They had, I forgot the term that they used. It was essentially an incentive to Border Patrol. I think it was a retention, they called it, which gave Border Patrol more incentive to remain in their job. They had some kind of asylum restructure within the bill. And so it would actually do something. The Senate bill, yeah, they had a average that they would cap it out, which I believe was like a weekly average of 5,000. And once it reached that, they would shut down the border. But the thing that people aren't talking about is the average that we've had daily coming through the border is about 3,500. So if you cap it at 5,000 individuals, that's still allowing over 1.2 million illegal immigrants coming into the country. So I personally think that this Senate bill was just a political move by the Democrat Party, like they say the same thing about Trump's reason as he supposedly shut it down. You know, they had 3.5 years to do something about this, and they decided to wait until the year of an election to pass or fight for a bill that, frankly, would do absolutely nothing to our current numbers.
So I guess the question is would the bill before Congress that they were willing to support, would that have improved the border or not?
The Senate bill?
The not HR 2, but the other border bill.
The bipartisan bill?
Yeah.
I don't believe it would have, because it's not. If they wanted to make an impact, I would say cap the daily average or the weekly average under what we're seeing the average is. So it's at 5,000. The average we're seeing is 3,500. So they know that we would never even reach that 5,000 number. Therefore,
Sure, but
to an
it's not
average
the average thing. That was just one part of it, right? Like like for instance, it would have provided for more funding for asylum judges. I think it would have provided for more judges. It would have provided for more funding for security at the border. Like, wouldn't these things have helped?
I don't think so, because they're not changing the actual amount of individuals that are coming through. What we first need to do is, in order to attack asylum, we need to first stop, frankly, everybody that's coming in, so that we can do it orderly, we can do it properly, and we can do it the right way. Because asylum seekers, something I talked about a little bit on Jubilee, is these individuals are coming through. I have no doubt that there's people that are coming here that genuinely need help, that are trying to escape some kind of political prosecution, religious prosecution, whatever it may be, from their country. The problem is we're seeing such a high number of individuals that they're coming through and they're using asylum as an excuse. There's I believe it's the CB1 app that you can download. This app basically mark that you're
Okay,
coming
here.
for
Okay, I understand. I know. Yeah, I know. Okay, so the question is, I'm not saying would it solve 100% all of our illegal immigration problems. The question is, would it have helped? So if we think that there's a lot of people seeking asylum and getting checks, for instance, to wait for their court date, wouldn't it help if all those cases were processed?
I mean, it might help with asylum, but that's
Isn't
not.
asylum the biggest problem we're having right now?
No, the biggest problem we're having is the people that are coming through that are committing crimes, that are frankly stealing a lot of these low skilled jobs from
Well, hold on,
Americans.
wait. How are people getting into the country right now primarily? Where are most of the people coming from?
Like country wise, or?
No. Like most people are coming in right now by claiming asylum.
Well, yeah, but claiming asylum, I mean, that's big whoop. Like, you can claim asylum, and these people that are coming through claiming asylum, majority of them are not actually filing their paperwork. They're just getting put into the system and taking the handouts that the government's giving them.
Yeah, but then how do we know if it's a good claim or not?
What? My claim of what?
How do we know if they're actually like deserving of asylum or not?
Well, that's the thing, is we don't really know.
Well, but that's what the judges are for, right? To make that determination.
But how can you determine that? I think that's the hardest thing is.
Wait. Do you think in the
say-
United States of America, do you think that we don't have any way of determining who's like appealing or I'm sorry, or like the people applying for asylum? You think we have no way of knowing that? Like we don't know anything about them, or?
I don't think we have a very good way right now, because what evidence is there? You could come through and say, we're fleeing our country, we're escaping this prosecution, our lives are on the line. But like for the government right now, that's enough. Like they hear that and they're like, okay, come on in.
Wait, if that's enough, then why do we even bother reviewing the cases at all? Wouldn't we just approve everybody?
I mean, I don't really think we have any process right now that's really working.
What, don't we only approve like 5% or less of asylum claims?
No.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. And with our current process right now is basically these individuals are coming through, they're quote unquote seeking asylum. Once they seek asylum, everything's handed off to them. You know, they're provided with government IDs in some cases. They're provided with $5,000 to $10,000 a month for housing, for food, more than, Americans that may need it. They're provided these things, and then they're kind of just let loose into the country, and they're put on our system. If we have a proper funneling at the border, we can have people come in, family comes in, oh, we're seeking asylum. Okay, we have a proper process. We can hopefully get to a point, which is the end goal, I think, with most people on both sides, is that people that are seeking asylum, they come through and they're able to get processed correctly and decently quickly. Because right now,
What do you think is the approval right now for asylum claims?
For asylum claims?
Like, yeah, like what percentage of people do you think get approved?
I mean, honestly, and I don't necessarily believe numbers that are coming out with that, because the numbers that people are saying, but then the actual cases that we're seeing throughout our country is just, there's complete disparity between that.
How do you know?
Because we're seeing over 10 million individuals that are coming through.
How do you know there's 10 million? How do you know it's not 5 million or 20 million?
because we have numbers from Border Patrol, which actually they're estimating is a lot closer to 15 million.
Wait, so why would you trust those numbers but not the numbers about asylum being approved or denied?
Because a lot of the process with asylum is there's no clear process. It's very clear to be able to count how many people are crossing through our borders.
Wait, first
But
of all, how is it so easy to count people that are sneaking into the country? Isn't that literally like an oxymoron? Like, isn't these?
well, there's two different types of illegal immigrants that we're seeing. There's gotaways and there's give ups. The give ups are typically those that are quote unquote seeking asylum, which are very easy to count. The
Yeah, but those
gotaways,
people, we wouldn't count those people as illegal immigrants, right?
we are because they're illegal immigrants.
Wait. By definition, or what does illegal mean to you? What does that word mean, I guess?
Crossing through the border without a legal process.
Okay, what is the asylum process? Is that an illegal process?
I don't think we have one right now.
Do you hold on, let me just be very clear. You legitimately believe that right now in the United States of America, we have no formal process for how to process somebody for asylum?
Correct.
So
Specifically because of the CB1 app.
So you think
People
that
are
when
coming-
people come in and they see a judge, do they just like do the
They're not
hokey
seeing
pokey?
judges. They're not seeing judges.
What do they get slips for court dates? What's the court date for?
What the process that we have right now, and this is from people that have been at the border, they walk in, they seek asylum, or they get taken, or whatever, what's the word, intercepted by Border Patrol. They seek asylum and they're given paperwork, but half of these people are not filing their proper paperwork for asylum. So if we can figure out some way to figure out a process, I'm all for that, and I think both sides are for that.
Okay, when I'm just, do we have is there a chat in here?
Yeah.
Where is it? Can you? Oh, okay. Oh, I just look it up. So when I go to the USCIS website, okay, so I have the affirmative asylum process. So I have like 7 steps here: arrive in the U.S., apply for asylum, fingerprinting and background/security checks, receive an interview notice, interview, asylum officer makes it like. In each of these, like, have subcategories of things as well. Are you saying that this process doesn't exist, or nobody does it, or?
Honestly, I'm saying it's not happening. These individuals are coming through the border. They're seeking quote unquote asylum. They're getting put on a train, being sent to New York, being housed in hotels, being handed.
Hold on, none of these things are contradictory.
bracelets.
Wait, none of these things are contradictory. Like, hold on. You're saying that when they come into the United States and they claim asylum, what are you saying is happening?
They are giving them resources and just frankly placing them around the country.
Wait, isn't giving an asylum seeker, a legitimate asylum seeker, resources? Isn't that a good thing? Like if a family is fleeing like persecution in a country and they come to the United States,
they're not taking proper processes to actually legitimize if this is true.
Wait, then what is this? What am I looking at on this USCIS website? What is this?
I understand you're looking at something, but that's not happening.
How do you know that's not happening?
Because the numbers are not matching up.
What do you mean? What numbers don't you think are matching up?
If this was the proper way that it's happening, we would not have 10 million people coming through our country.
They're coming and they're claiming asylum, right?
But why is it that out of all the years that people have been coming to America, these past 3.5 years have been the highest that we've ever had?
Because I think people figured out because people have figured out after COVID, when there was a huge splurge of more people wanting to come to the country, and then the asylum system started to get backed up. People realized that as per U.S. law, if you come to the United States and you claim asylum and they can't process you immediately, they give you a slip and they tell you to show up for a court date. And then once people figured that out, a ton of people started coming in and just claiming asylum because you get a free ticket into the country.
Okay, but how many people are showing up for the court dates?
I don't know. We can look it up, but I mean, like, there's still but there's a process, right?
Majority of these people seeking asylum do not show up for court dates. The problem with our system right now is the United States, they are not doing anything about it. People don't show up for their court dates, and then they're still just provided their resources, and they're provided housing, they're provided monthly.
Sure, but okay, but like, so there is a process, right? If you have a court date, that means that there is a process, right?
It's not a good process. I'm not arguing that there's not a process. I'm arguing that our process is not being enforced.
Well, but what's your evidence that what do you mean by not being enforced? If you give somebody a slip and they don't show up for court, then what do you do?
It's close to 80% of these people that are seeking asylum are not showing up for court dates, and our government is not doing anything about it. So these people are just staying in our country. That's what the problem is.
But then,
arguing
my guess is going to be if you miss your court date on that, then they probably filed to have you deported if they find you.
They are not doing that though.
They're not. You think so? If you miss your court date, what do they do? Just grant you citizenship, or what do you think happens?
You're here. You're an illegal immigrant.
Yes, exactly. But if you're an illegal immigrant, if you get caught, then you can be deported, right?
But that's how it should be done, but it's not happening is the problem.
Well, when you say it's not happening, because, I mean, obviously we don't have the manpower to send federal agents into every single city and find illegals, but so there is a process.
Which is why we need a proper process enforced at the very beginning. We shouldn't be providing them with these resources, with thousands of dollars, with housing, with all of these things granted to them before we have proper status of where they are, where they're going, and what their eventual goal is in this country.
Okay, but if people are coming, if people are coming in legitimately seeking asylum, then why would you tell these people to basically get bent and then have them starve to death while they're waiting for their case to be heard?
No one's saying to starve them to death, but if you have a proper process and you're enforcing that process, you won't be waiting months or years for a court date.
No, they are waiting months or years because the system is backlogged. That's why that border bill was supposed to provide more judges more money.
The border bill would not have helped.
It literally would have. Like you're saying there's no process, and we're saying the process doesn't exist because the process is backlogged.
In order for us to refine our process, we first need to start with shutting down the border, period. Once we do that, we can start building things up. You can't start building up the foundation of a house, or you can't start building up the walls of a house before you have a foundation. We don't have a foundation. That's the problem.
We literally do have a foundation. We just need to fund it more.
No, we don't need to fund it.
We don't need to fund our border security?
Funding is not the issue. Funding within our government is not an issue. I think funding things to the proper areas is what we need. But my whole argument is I'm not saying we should turn away these people that are seeking asylum, but we need to start with shutting down the border first and preventing, frankly, the hundreds of thousands of criminals that are coming through. We have, it was like 400,000 illegal immigrants that are coming through have a criminal record. 14,000 of those are murderers.
First of all, wait. These people... How do we even know that? How could you possibly know that?
Because how do you know any other statistic?
You said that there's no process and that nothing is being enforced. So how could you possibly have data on the amount of illegal people coming in and know their criminal background? How could you ever know that information?
Well, I've gotten that information from Border Patrol, from the FBI.
Wait. How could the Border Patrol or FBI, if there's no processing, if there's no background checks, how could you possibly know that? Like with what you just said, to know that somebody's coming in illegally and to know they have a criminal background, doesn't that mean that there must be background checks even on illegals that are sneaking by somehow? Doesn't that make no sense whatsoever?
I'm just trusting our government organizations. I straight up released these statistics that 425,000 of these illegal immigrants are criminals. 225 of those have pending criminal records that are being processed right now.
Can we just think let's think, how could you ever know that? Let's think about that. Like, let's say that I tell you that there's an invisible purple unicorn, right? I feel like the question would be, well, how do you know if it's purple, if it's invisible, right? So I'm asking if
it's like you can make that argument for any statistic that the government releases.
Try one.
Presumably the FBI.
You can make an argument for COVID. You could say, how could they give us all the numbers of people that died from COVID?
The way that they give the numbers from people that die from COVID is because every single hospital has death certificates, and then they have a whole system of logging patient symptoms, patient diagnoses, and then they do processing based on state mandates.
What about those that died from COVID that weren't directly COVID related? What about those that died from COVID?
What about them?
We never knew COVID.
Wait.
Why? Because the people that are, which is a little off topic, but the people that they're saying died from COVID, a lot of those individuals died from other causes, but they just had COVID at the time.
What do you mean by that? But the COVID might have been the thing that caused them to. You have multiple things that can cause a person to die, right?
Well, like if somebody was in the hospital and maybe let's say they had a stroke, and then they get tested and they're positive from COVID. They'll say that they were positive from COVID.
They might list it as a thing on the death certificate.
No, they will say that they died from COVID.
I don't believe.
That was part of the thing.
Even if I did grant you all of that, which is not true, but even if I did grant you all of that, you just explained the process. So then whatever you were saying before doesn't work, right? Like the fact that you can even say this means that there is a process by which we can check data and look, right?
I'm simply just trusting what ICE has put out.
You're saying that over and over again. I'm just asking if there's no process to vet people coming into this country illegally, how can we know they have criminal backgrounds? Something's not working there.
Because
ICE must have some way they're figuring out.
Well,
right?
the answer is that there is one is that I'm pretty sure those numbers are completely fabricated. But the second thing is that there are tons of processes. The American border is one of the most secure borders on the planet. Or at least our screening processes are for immigrants and asylum seekers. It's an insane amount of vetting that we do.
I would very disagree, but
how does ICE get the information? Do you think?
Me? Are you asking me? I remember looking at this from a lot.
Luke, I mean, there has to be. I guess what Steven's saying is like there's some way that ICE is getting the information. Like you trust ICE, you trust the government organizations. I think we do as well. They're getting it somehow, right? Like there's.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I don't know if it necessarily supports this, honestly, but a lot of the crimes that we're seeing, there was a statistic that said some close to 60% of the crime that's being done right now in New York is by illegal immigrants. So, if there's statistics like that out there, I mean,
here's the issue that I'm having. This is why none of this passes the smell test for me. How many illegal immigrants did you say came in here with criminal records?
Over 400,000.
Yeah, over 400,000. Do you know how many of those were like violent crimes or?
Those were violent crimes.
Okay, 400,000 have come in with violent crimes.
Yes.
Why is it that the only name I hear over and over again is Laken Riley? She died like 9 months ago.
Because the media suppressed all of that.
Hold on. If there were hundreds of thousands of violent illegal immigrants with violent criminal records that were coming into this country, wouldn't there be like dozens of people getting killed every single day? Why is it one person that I hear about for a year?
There are individuals that are being killed every week from illegal immigrants. The media is suppressing it. There was 2 young girls that were killed in Texas a couple of weeks ago. The media suppresses that.
What do you mean by suppresses it?
They don't talk about it.
How do you know about it then?
Because I follow media that actually covers those stories. You can't falsify a murder.
I don't know what you mean by falsify a murder, but so it's not, I mean, my guess is whatever whatever the names of these people are. If I look these up, my guess is I can probably find a news article about it. No.
Oh, I'm sure you could find a news article about it, but you're not going to find it on NBC, you're not going to find it on ABC, you're not going to find it on these major news platforms. Maybe they'll cover it for like a highlight of their like news for the day, but it's not something that these channels are focusing on. They're more concerned of focusing on, oh, Trump's a bad man, Trump's a mean man. They're not covering legit news, which is impacting this country.
Are you talking about this 12-year-old that was killed in Houston, in Texas, on June 26th?
That's one of them. There was 2 girls that were killed.
Okay, well, I know this because I see it on CNN.com. So it sounds like they are reporting it. Are you just mad because they're not obsessively talking about it every single day, or?
Well, they should be, because innocent individuals are being killed by these illegal immigrants. All they're doing is ignoring that, and they're just talking about.
Well, they're not ignoring it. They're literally being.
The only talking point that the left media has had in anything immigration related is this Senate bill, period. There's a reason why we had a 50-year low for illegal immigration under Trump's terms.
Wait. What do you think was the main cause of that?
The executive orders that he enacted.
It was COVID. You really don't understand that?
No, it wasn't COVID. Trump was in office from 2016 to 2020. We had the lowest numbers during those years. It wasn't just during 2020.
They were like about as low as Obama's. The huge dip was during COVID. It was Title 42 and COVID.
No.
Okay. What do you want to say, Jake?
There's a reason we had those. And there's also a reason why we have the highest illegal immigration now. And that's because Biden came in and removed over 90 executive orders that Trump put in place. He came in and removed the Remain in Mexico Act, which people can argue whatever they want on.
Remain in Mexico only entered into play in like 2019. So it's not even like a. It's not even like a huge factor for the majority of his presidency.
That was still during his term.
Yeah, but most of this was over COVID, right? So
it's just like, I think you're finding every little way that you can justify the numbers that we've had during Trump's term.
I don't think you know. I don't even know if you know what it means to like be an illegal immigrant. It sounds like you just think everybody that's here, like every single person that's come here to claim asylum, is an illegal immigrant by your definition. Like,
correct.
That's not true. But
if you cross over our borders in a legal process and there's no process that you come through legally, you are an illegal immigrant. The legal process right now, yeah, it's not the easiest thing, but there's a legal process for a reason.
The asylum process is a legal process.
It is not being, the process is not being done correctly.
Can we get data on that? Luke, I know you have a ton of data and you shared some of this during the Jubilee call, and maybe you can pull some of it out now. We can talk through it. But Stephen is saying that there, and I have the link in front of me, there is an asylum process. I think you've agreed there's a process, but that it's not followed. So let's just get to the bottom of that. Is it being followed, and to what extent? I mean, Luke, why don't you think that the asylum process is not being followed?
I mean, honestly, the biggest thing is because it's common sense. We wouldn't have these millions of individuals. Why is it that out of all the years that we have allowed for asylum seekers in this country, why are we having, it's not even like our numbers are up a little bit. We're up tenfold, 100-fold. They're up to an insane amount of people that are quote unquote seeking asylum. And then if you look at the statistics of people that are seeking asylum or that claim they are, and then those that are actually following through with the process, vast majority of them are not following through with the process. So if they were seeking asylum, they would be wanting to push for this process to go through. They would be taking all the steps that they need to take, but they're not.
I want to try to summarize a couple of your points, ask a question, and then we can move on to the next topic. So I'm going to really dumb down, in summary, this conversation, which is that, Stephen, you're saying, hey, Congress tried to pass a bill which would not fix the situation on the border, but it would improve it. And Luke, you're saying that's nonsense. The bill sucks, and part of the reason that's nonsense is because if you care at all about fixing the problem, you have to secure the border. Otherwise, any kind of trying to fix it beyond that, it's not going to do anything. To which Stephen is saying, I think what Stephen's saying is basically, look, if we have a bill on the table to improve asylum, even if it improves it by 3%, like why the hell wouldn't we? You know, we know asylum's a problem, whether it's being followed or not being followed. Like we know we got to improve it. So why not just take whatever Congress gives you and just say, okay, this is a good start, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would just ask, why did they wait 3.5 years?
Because they suck. But I'm saying once they got it out, like, why not just take it?
But I mean, I can make the same argument with HR2. Why shouldn't we have just taken that? HR2 had areas in that bill that helped with asylum, but it also had areas that would help with the actual illegal immigration that's going on. The Senate bill was more concerned with giving another $60 billion to the Ukraine. And then they tried to separate it from the bill and create a whole separate bill, but it still didn't do it. It was a poorly written bill.
I don't know about HR2. Steven, do you know about this?
It was once they realized that Daddy Trump wanted them to not vote on the bill, on the bipartisan bill that was authored by a Republican that was going to be like supported by both sides. They had an alternative bill called HR2, which was insanely more radical. And the reason why they supported this is because this bill was dead on arrival. Like there was no shot it was ever passing anything. There was no bipartisan negotiation on this. It was just an unhinged, insane bill. But they knew they could suggest that. They knew that they could suggest that because nobody would ever agree with it, and then they can have people, I guess, like Luke say, oh well, look, they had another bill, but that bill was never going to, that bill was never going to pass.
But if, like Luke, if I'm the captain of a ship and then the ship hits an iceberg and there's a hole in the ship and water's pouring out of it and I need 8 tons of wood to patch the hole, and someone says I don't have 8 tons of wood, but here's 1 ton of wood, I would take that 1 ton, I'd start patching that hole, and I'd pray to God that we get the 7 tons later on. I feel like
But we had 4 tons with the HR2 bill a year before. And my whole thing is the Democrats like to come out and say, Trump shut it down because he wanted to save it for his big moment once he wins the election.
Wait, the Republicans said that, to be clear. That's what the Republicans say.
But I can say the same argument where Democrats had 3.5 years and they decided until election year to try to push this bill, which there was 5 Democrats that voted against the bill.
What does that have to do with anything? Who cares? It was going to pass regardless.
But people talk about, oh, well, we had a few Republicans that voted for it. Okay, we also had 5 Democrats that voted against the bill. It was a poorly written bill if you look at it. I understand what you're getting at, Jake, with, maybe it could have helped in some areas. But we had a bill that was proposed a year before that would have helped in 10 times the areas.
So another topic, another question, Luke. Why would a ban on assault weapons not be helpful in this country? Like, why do civilians need assault weapons? And why would it not help the security and safety of our people and our children and our schools to ban them?
First off, why do they need them? Because it's their right. The Second Amendment was instituted to protect the citizens against a tyrannical government. And whether that applied, close to 300 years ago, to whether that applies now, it's the same thing. And so it's our right. And the argument I make so much with Democrats and Republicans, or liberals and conservatives, is that liberals see the Second Amendment as a privilege. Conservatives see the Second Amendment as a right. And why simplest way an assault weapons ban would not help is because less than 5% of homicides are by assault weapons. You're more likely to be killed by a car than not even just an assault weapon, but a gun. So why are they pushing for this? Like, it's not the problem. The biggest problem is that we have a mental health crisis in our country that liberals so often just want to ignore. These people that are involved in mass shootings, these people that are ahead of these shootings, you can't point out a single individual that is mentally sane. And I'll even bring up the guy that tried to assassinate Donald Trump. He wasn't mentally sane.
I would bet if grenades were legal, then you'd also find people who are mentally unstable to be the ones more often using grenades to kill people. It doesn't mean that grenades are not very dangerous, though.
Correct, but if you don't attack the problem, that removal of legalization is just a Band-Aid. A big stat that I hear so much from the liberals is that, oh, well, Great Britain or England has the lowest gun death. Well, guess what? They have the highest stabbing rate in the world because they don't have guns.
Stephen, where do you stand on this? I mean, you've got what looks like an assault rifle behind you, but you're a liberal. So help us understand. What's your stance on assault weapons bans?
I don't care much about assault weapons. I think it's stupid political capital. I don't think it's worth talking about. Also, that's a shotgun, motherfucker.
Oh, okay. It's got a green thing in it. So, Luke, why do you think the FDA and Big Pharma are threats to society?
Oh, jeez.
FDA or Big Pharma. Why do you think those are threats?
I think both of them are, in my opinion, not just big threats. I think they're the biggest threat to our country. The push for not only, the types of foods that we have, the push for a big thing that I don't know if you guys have followed at all, but it was back in, I think it was like the 40s, but it was a big thing between the National Heart Association and Procter and Gamble, where they paid them off to essentially push this claim that these seed oils, canola oil, corn oil, all this stuff is, going to help with your heart and is a benefit for your heart. And then now we're finding all these things of how bad it is for you and how just terrible it is and how it actually is worse for your heart than a lot of these other more, I guess, whole, less processed foods. And so I think they're the biggest threat because they're the ones that are benefiting most off of our illnesses.
Stephen, thoughts on this? topic of interest?
I mean,
to you?
people that sell heating pads benefit off of people being sick as well. I mean, people that sell food benefit off of hungry people. People that sell homes benefit off of people that want shelter, and people that sell clothes benefit from people that don't want to be nudists. I mean, that's not an argument against anything. The United States is one of the biggest innovators of medical research in the world. Conservatives that say that they don't trust the FDA or they don't trust any medical stuff or pharmaceutical stuff in the United States sure seem eager to inject their insulin every month or day or week. I don't know how often you take the newer synthetic analogs, but and their dick pills and their hair pills. So I don't know what to say. I mean, if people don't trust Big Pharma, then I guess don't take any drugs. Don't do any ibuprofen. Don't do any of that shit. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a baseless claim. Who does it better? Like who do you trust instead?
Eastern medicine.
Eastern medicine, like what?
Simple diets. I mean, our big thing is the school lunches that the government provides. Up to 50% of all the food that's provided to these kids is processed food. There's a reason why our country is one of the most obese countries in the world.
Do you think that conservatives are going to be lining up to pay the increase in property taxes to fund like fully organic, like ultra healthy school lunches?
I think they would. The ones that I've talked to would, because they're going to directly benefit the health of this
Don't
nation.
Conservatives literally fight against providing school lunch at all to kids?
No. I've never heard that argument before. You push this agenda that conservatives are just these people that want to make other people suffer.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen the increase of, frankly, autism diagnoses that I relate directly to the FDA and Big Pharma. There's a reason why back in the 70s and 80s, for every 10,000 kids, you had 2 to 4 of those diagnosed with autism. Now, 1 in every 36 children is diagnosed with autism, and 1 in every 22 boys is diagnosed with autism. And I direct that.
Do you think, or is it a mistake?
When I look at, we're just curious. So I'm looking at states that have free lunch to students, and I'm seeing California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, Vermont. Do you think that if I were to look up, do you think like Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Idaho, Montana, would I find a bunch of like conservative states that why don't they have free lunch?
I'm not sure, but that's not a strong enough argument to make a claim that conservative states don't care about kids, because maybe certain conservative states don't have, frankly, the funding. Alabama and these states that you're listing, they're not the highest economic states.
Okay, well, this article is from last year, June 15th, and this is about how the Republican Study Committee, of which some 3/4 of House Republicans are members of, on Wednesday released its desired 2024 budget, in which the party boldly declares its priority to eliminate the Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP, from the school lunch program.
That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the types of foods that our kids are being fed. You're trying to turn it into a talking point of conservatives care less about kids than liberals.
I'm saying that if well, that's true. But I'm saying that if conservatives don't even want to feed kids in school, why do you think they're going to be willing to feed them like unprocessed, organic, healthy, all-natural food, which would be even more expensive?
Because if they're feeding the kids right now, you can just feed them whole foods.
That which is more expensive. It would cost more, right?
Not necessarily. Because when you're fed and you're eating a more whole food diet, your portions not only are smaller, but the amount of food that you eat is smaller, because the processed foods that we have, the types of preservatives, the increase in sodium, the increase in sugar, that feeds to your hunger. That's why a lot of these school lunches, they have like 8 different components. They have 8 different things. And all those things do is, one, they have very low nutrients. They're very high in saturated fats. They're very high in sugar. They're very high in salt. But all that does is that just increases your hunger. And I myself, I'm not the biggest on like personal, anecdotes, but I follow a very strict whole food diet. My grocery list every week has been cut by probably $50.
What do you buy for groceries?
I buy grass-fed beef. I buy whole foods. I buy white rice. So when you simplify your diet, it does benefit your dollar. And frankly, my other argument with that is when you're eating a healthier diet, when you're eating a food with less preservatives and less processed, you're going to have better health. When you have better health, you visit the doctor less. You have less medical expenses because you're less likely
people should eat healthier. It's good.
Real quick. So this article is from this year. Republican governors in 15 states reject summer food money for kids.
Again, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about health. I'm not talking about government provisions.
How do you feed kids in school if not with
I brought up
money?
The whole autism thing. I didn't hear an ounce from you about that because there's no rebuttal from that.
We haven't even gotten to that. How are you going to feed kids in school if you don't have the money for it? Where does the food come from?
Considering that we have sent $170 billion to another country that doesn't need our help at this time, I think we can manage to find proper funding to feed these kids.
Do you think if we sent M249s to schools instead of to Ukraine, would that have helped them? What are they going to do, hunt with the weapons?
Apart from the money that we sent for weapons, it's still close to $100 billion. So it's our country has never been a problem of funding, nor frankly will ever be a problem of funding.
What does sending money to Ukraine have to do with Republicans rejecting school lunches?
Because that money that we sent, the $170 billion, if we brought that and used that in this country, we would be able to end hunger in our country.
We already run budget deficits. The Republicans don't want to spend that money here.
It's not a matter of spending the money here. If we have the money and we have the funding, we
don't have the money. We have budget deficits. We, by definition, don't have the money, or we have infinite money.
Then why are we sending $170 billion to Ukraine?
What does that have to do with feeding kids in school?
Exactly. You're bringing up the funding.
You brought up the Ukraine stuff. I'm asking you. You're saying we need to give.
You're talking about. Well, how are we going to fund this? The conservatives. I'm not talking about a certain party right now. You're the one that brought up party. I didn't bring up party.
Stephen, he's saying if we didn't send $100 billion to Ukraine, you could use that in the cafeteria.
But one, that's not true because you could just spend it in both places.
How do you know?
Because I know how the government budget works.
But then that's your same argument you made about the border numbers. How do you know?
How do I know what?
Give me some type of law or some type of history that shows that we would not utilize that funding.
Because when you do an appropriations bill, you sketch out like what you need to get money for, and then if the government doesn't have the money for it, then you sell treasury bonds, you borrow from the treasury, whatever, to fund the thing. That's how we do it. What do you think a budget deficit?
That's not an argument of stating if we use that $170 billion, we wouldn't potentially use that or could use that to benefit the kids. You're just making an assumption.
Okay.
Steven's getting sick of
You're just making an assumption.
Steven, I want to argue with you.
Hold on. I just have to catch up to where the fuck I'm even at in this conversation.
Yeah.
If we spend money past a budget deficit, right? Like, let's say, for instance, I'm going to go take out a loan. Let's say that I'm going to go to the bank and take out a loan, okay? I'm going to the bank. I'm going to borrow money. And I'm going to borrow that money because I want to buy 5 bikes. If somebody tells me, hey, we should buy a skateboard too, then I'd probably just borrow more money. But I would never say you'd never go oh my God, why did you buy 5 bikes? If you would have just not bought one of the bikes, we could have bought a skateboard. I'm already getting a loan. I just take out a bigger loan.
But that's how you are. That's
how the federal government works. Do you acknowledge that we have
You can't make that argument for the government because you're saying they wouldn't utilize that money, $170 billion, to benefit our country.
Because you can't, because it has to be appropriated. You have to ask for the money. It's not just sitting there. It's literally borrowed. That's why it's a budget deficit. That's why it adds to the debt.
Okay, so then we could have borrowed that money to fund the needs in our country.
But Republicans don't want to. Republicans don't want to do that. Where are Republicans talking about funding it? Also, can you acknowledge it's
send $170 billion to Ukraine?
It's $35 billion is how much money we've sent to Ukraine. Most of it is in weapons and military supplies.
Okay, $170 billion valuized of whether it's weaponry.
So you would rather send missiles and airplanes. If we would have gotten the students on the F-16 program, they could have flown to Indonesia to buy cheaper food?
He's saying the money. He's saying the money is transferable.
I'm saying the money. It's the whole point of you turn this into a party thing. This is
It is a
very
party thing.
nonpartisan issue
It's not nonpartisan. It's literally
of
Republicans.
the FDA and taking care of our kids and taking care of our health and taking care of our country. Our country is turning into one of the most unhealthy countries in the world. The way that big pharma and the way that the pharmaceutical companies in this country push for opioids, for these painkillers that only cause secondary symptoms so that you have to go back to the doctor. I mean, think about it. If
What do you mean a
doctors actually
painkiller
did
causes
their-
a secondary symptom?
If
A painkiller is prescribed if you are experiencing pain. That's what a painkiller is for. They don't cure things. They treat a symptom.
They prescribe opioids like they hand out candy at Halloween.
No, they don't. They've dramatically cut down
Yes,
on the
they
prescriptions
do.
for opioids, obviously, because they were prescribing too many in the past. That's fine.
And
You
why
learn.
is-
Same thing
why
with
is it so
amoxicillin.
easy to get them? When I had a very, 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 very minor surgery, and they were trying to give me Oxycontin, they were trying to give me so many of these opioids that I didn't need any. I didn't even need Tylenol. They're pushing this stuff because if you think about it, if doctors actually did their job, they would go out of business. If they actually helped people get healthier and stay healthier,
Well, sometimes people are in pain. Sometimes people are in a lot of pain.
yeah, that's fair. When they actually need it, that's fair.
There's a degree, you know, the system's not perfect. They prescribe opioids when you're in pain, and sometimes they, you know, overdo it. Like I was prescribed Adderall when I was younger. Did I need it? Probably not. You know, do a lot of kids need it? Yes. Is it a perfect prescription process?
I mean,
Probably not.
I would argue that kids don't need it. I would argue that there's other methods and other ways to
Some
fix
kids need it. Some people need opioids.
You know, like I've grown up with immense anxiety. Have I been prescribed anxiety meds? Many times. I've actually been pushed to take these antidepressants and this medication. I never once have taken it. I took the proper way. I went to therapy. I took care of my health. I got into fitness. You know, I
But there's
improved my
a
diet.
degree. Like sometimes you need medicine, sometimes you don't.
Well,
Sometimes
yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. The way that
some
it's
people
put,
some people need opioids if you're in a lot of pain, and you know.
Do we
Yeah,
think
I'm
that?
not-
Wait,
I'm not
does-
saying-
I'm just curious. Is oil a self-replenishing resource, or is there like a limited amount in the ground?
what does that have to do with this?
It's
We'll see.
it's an EPA question, is what I'm getting into. But
I mean, I don't think that's applicable to this conversation.
well, no,
I
because I have a
think-
question
I
about like
think
the
you
EPA and like
should stop
fossil fuel stuff. I'm just curious. Like, is
wanna
oil
shift?
self-replenishing, or is there a limited amount in the ground?
I believe there's a limited amount.
Okay.
Is that one off? Is that it?
Yeah, I was just curious.
I mean, I just think it's like maybe I'm hypercritical of our government, but I think maybe you're not critical enough.
No, it's
Like,
not even being critical
our-
at it. So you don't live in the real world, right? If you want to talk about health outcomes, conservatives are fatter.
I don't live in the real
Conservatives
world.
are fatter. They are less healthy than liberals. They get less exercise and then tend to eat shittier diets. So we're looking at
That
this
is-
like pure
that is the-
health.
that
If
is
we
the
tend to
biggest
be
load
pure
of
health,
crap I've
if you want,
ever seen.
listen,
Are
I know
you
you like to
kidding
live in
me?
anecdotes. Download Tinder and go to. I lived in fucking Nebraska. Let me tell you, the girls on Tinder in Nebraska are a lot different than the girls in LA, Miami, New York, Seattle, Portland. It's not even fucking close. Okay, so yes, conservatives tend to be fatter. They tend to be less healthy. They tend to have worse health outcomes. That's why more of them died to COVID because more of them were fat and they died because they were more. Hold on, let me finish. You got a whole ass thing, okay? You want to talk about you don't like drugs because you think that the pharmaceutical companies are just trying to make money off of all of us and that's all they're doing, but you don't even support the most like ideal form of preventative care. I'm guessing. Well, hold on. Let me ask a question. How did you feel about the vaccines?
The vaccines was terrible.
There you go. See, so that's the thing. That's a thing that big pharma did research into, and vaccines are technically bad for pharma because why would you give somebody a vaccine for an illness when you could treat them for the illness over and over and over again? So that's an example of pharmaceutical companies that research things and invest in things. So you're sitting here saying I don't believe in ADHD medication. I believe in Eastern medicine, and then you're saying because even though you have no research to back it, and then you'll go turn around and say I don't believe in vaccines either. So like, what do you believe? You believe in nothing. You have no data. You've got no sources. You've got no science. You've got no outcomes. You've got the fact that conservatives are fatter and less healthy. You've got the fact that conservative states don't even want to feed their fucking kids in school. Everything you're making is just like a delusional argument. It's not rooted in reality for any single part of this. Like, there's nothing to respond to.
Okay, so now that your rant's done, let's look at actual statistics. The increase that we're seeing with autism specifically not only is directly related to an increase in the certain amino acid, what was it called? PPA, I believe it's called. I have it right here, actually. Let me see if I can find it. AAH. AAH, not only in these foods and our preservatives, and food dye has increased autism numbers, but vaccines have as well. Not only that, but vaccines have so many adverse side effects. We can look at the COVID vaccine in specific, how we see individuals like a friend of ours in my hometown that was one of the healthiest people I have met. Runner, super healthy diet, took care of herself. She got vaccinated. They found her dead at the bottom of her stairs because her heart gave out.
Isn't that sorry, not to jump. Isn't that an anecdote though? Like most people didn't. That's not what happened to most
No,
people.
bro,
right?
that's common sense.
I don't know, but there's individuals that have gotten the vaccine. We have, and I know it's another anecdote, but we have another family friend that she was trying to have a baby and post. But why are we seeing this? Because yes,
if you give 300 million people the vaccine,
there's also real life, but there's also real life living. When you see these people that are being affected by this, I mean, there's a reason why when I was born, I only had to get 5 vaccines. My friend that had a baby, and babies now that are being born, they're close to 47 vaccines.
How old? What are you, like 150 years old? How old are you?
I'm 24.
And you only had to get 4 vaccines?
I had to get 5, yeah.
I don't believe you. I don't think that's true.
Well, actually, can I ask a question about that? So, and then Destiny, Steven, I want to challenge you about something, but Luke.
I'm challenged right now, trust me.
You what?
This is a challenging conversation, don't worry.
Luke, how do you feel about like the smallpox vaccine?
Oh wait, also, just as a quick thing, because it's funny to listen to him talk. Notice how like if some guy is like suffocating on his own fucking phlegm and breath, and he's dying of COVID in the hospital, conservatives will be like, well, it didn't count as a COVID death. He was also obese. He also had like this underlying illness. That's not a COVID death. But like if somebody gets vaccinated and then they drop dead from a random fucking thing, 3 days ago, it was 100% a vaccine caused death. Like at that, all we need is the one vaccine, and we know that no matter why they died, it was caused by the vaccine. Like it's ridiculous. But
Luke, what do you think about the smallpox vaccine? Is that legit?
I mean, I think that's up to the parent whether they want their child to get it or not.
Get smallpox or not? You mean, or
no, to get the vaccine? I mean, there's certain vaccines that I would argue that the chances of a child getting it now in our country is far outweighs potential benefit of not getting it.
But if you get smallpox,
what do you attribute the dramatic increase in autism diagnosis to if you won't attribute it to anything related to vaccines or to our diet and the science that's showing the impact of these 1,000 ingredients that are banned in Europe?
Why do we think? Wait, why do we think that? Why is the chance of getting smallpox so low?
That wasn't my question.
No, but I'm curious. You said that the chance of getting it is so low today. Wait, why is
smallpox has been eradicated because of vaccines? Is what Steven's getting at. Smallpox is eradicated effectively because of vaccines.
Okay, but that wasn't my question.
Wait, is that true though? Were smallpox eradicated because of vaccines?
Oh, I'm not some like crazy hippie guy that says don't get a single vaccine, but you need to have an awareness of it's a benefit versus risk argument.
Was smallpox eradicated because of vaccines?
I haven't gotten the flu vaccine in close to 15 years.
Okay.
I'm just curious. The flu.
What about that though? Was smallpox eradicated because of vaccines?
Yeah, I'm not making that argument.
Would smallpox have been eradicated if you just got a vaccine for smallpox if you wanted to? Or was it eradicated because everybody was forced to get vaccinated against it?
I mean, that's an interesting argument to make.
No, it's not. It's
I don't know.
Straightforward.
I don't know but you can't make the claim that it specifically was eradicated because everybody got it.
Do you think if only 20% of the population got it, you think it would have been eradicated?
I mean, you can look at like something like the flu. The numbers of people getting the flu has dramatically decreased from say 2000 to now.
Has it?
Yes.
Don't flu deaths fluctuate pretty ordinarily between like 10 and 60,000 a year?
No.
I mean, some vaccines are good, right?
Risk. Like I said, it's benefit versus risk. People can eat how they want. People can live whatever lifestyle they want, but the risk is a lot higher. I think the one thing that I will give Gavin Newsom credit for, and I'll probably bite my tongue for this, is he's pushing to ban food dyes from our candy, from our food, because the effects of this is detrimental. I mean, it's a petroleum.
Why does it make it look like hospitalization and deaths for the past like 10, 15 years for the flu have been like kind of like up and down? Like,
I'm talking about something else. I feel like I bring up solid points and then you kind of just
well, you don't bring up anything. You bring up like anecdotes and random fact, and then when I fact check you, you're always wrong. You're wrong on literally everything, and then you want to move on to the next thing, of course, because you have no data to back anything.
That's where your mindset is at.
Yeah, in the factual world, I'm aware.
You can't admit to these things that are happening. So you don't believe that consuming a petroleum-based food dye is going to have an adverse effect on your health? Yes or no?
I don't know. In the long term, it probably depends on the amount that you consume, and it probably depends on other lifestyle factors as well.
So something like petroleum that should not be consumed by people, you think would just
petroleum sounds like bad. Probably you shouldn't eat petroleum if you can get, but maybe it's like
this is what I was talking about. It's called a propionic fatty acid. It's a short chain fatty acid that is one of the most prevalent preservatives that they're attributing to an increase in autism numbers. Do you think it's beneficial to have less autism diagnoses?
I would say so, yeah.
So then shouldn't we look at the very likely causes of these increases?
Sure. So would you be in favor? I mean, like, here's sure. Well, here's one. Would you be in favor of banning red meat?
But again, you're throwing things out there. You're throwing red herrings out there.
No, I'm not. I'm asking. I say, okay, we ban the food dyes. We ban all the food dyes. Okay, and then next, would you be in favor of banning red meat?
No, and I know the argument.
So you have bullshit. Nothing. You don't mean anything you're saying.
My diet,
the most insane fucking shit I've ever heard in my entire
life. I'm jumping in, Luke. What he's saying is that.
No, he knows what I'm saying. He understands what I'm saying.
Well, no, he thinks you're using a red herring with red meat, and I don't.
It's not a red herring. He just has no principles. He doesn't care. These are all just like buzzwords and shit. He probably has like a whole can of like dyed food that he eats for fun, like on the side. The most like the yellow, the most cancerous, the most toxic food dye ever. He probably just drinks it raw.
Oh, so you can admit that it's cancerous, that it's doing something, and it's causing effects.
For the sake of argument, let's say it is. What Steven's saying is there's lots of things in our diet that are bad for us, like red meat. I think that's what Steven's saying. Is he's conceding?
I know that you're not a very big fan of these personal anecdotes. My diet consumes primarily of grass-fed red meat. My health has been the best it's been in years. I have probably 20 other people in my life that follow the same exact diet. They've had the same exact results.
Okay, I've had 30 people that I've known, and they all had like severe cancer diagnoses, and then they started to food dye yellow all their food, and their cancers went away without even getting chemotherapy.
Really? I really do not believe that.
They literally did. They all live in LA. I can give you their names.
Okay.
Steven, you're recording.
Wait,
hold on. And guys, I appreciate this, and Luke, I hope that you don't feel like I'm attacking you here, because I appreciate you.
No, it's just I know who I'm talking to. I can present him with facts, and he just doesn't want to entertain.
Hold on, Steven. It says you're no longer being recorded. It says Steven has stopped. Destiny stopped recording.
I don't know how to fix it. It's a browser thing. I have literally no idea. So maybe get towards the.
Let me just stop this for a second. We did get an hour, so worst case. Is it my browser or is it?
No, but it's probably mine, because I had to open this in an incognito tab to get it to work. So my guess is going to be that the sessions are probably.
I'm surprised. You're the tech guy. Why?
I hate Riverside. Okay.
What else do people use?
Literally anything else. Discord, Zoom, fucking Skype.
Yeah, but Zoom, like you can't. You have to have the people panel, and then Zoom. It's one recording. It's like one monolithic recording.
Base.
Whatever. Okay. So we're running up on time. I'm gonna try doing
a recording again, right? Yeah.
We're taking a little break right now. Also, this allows the recording to kind of upload. So where I want to go from here, and Luke, I appreciate you doing this. Like I do want to be as kind of moderate as possible, and I know that I don't do that always. I'm kind of taking one side or the other, but anyway, I don't know. So I think I want to. If we have like 20 minutes or so, I want to ask, Steven, I feel like I want to push you on the gun thing. I feel like you kind of brushed that away, and I feel like I'm
not a big gun regulation guy. What do you mean? I don't care much about it. What about it?
Yeah, I think you should care about it.
Why?
Well, and then Luke, I want to ask you a question also about Trump and stuff like, the questions you probably get all the time, like how do we contextualize like Jan 6 and this stuff, and his character, because anyway, and then other than that, I mean, just since we're taking this little intermission while I figure this out, is there anything like, Luke, that you want us to go to so that you feel like this is fair and everything? And I don't know. I want
no, I mean, like,
any topic you think we should go back to?
No, I mean, I don't know if there's arguments I can make that are going to get anywhere, because everything.
I actually think a lot of these things, we're talking about spectrums. Like, we're talking about, like, you both believe that there's an asylum process. Stephen, by the way, it says Destiny in your corner, so it's not my fault.
To be clear, also, we're not on the spectrum anywhere. Okay, we are in totally different worlds. He doesn't even believe that there's. He thinks that everybody coming in for asylum is an illegal immigrant, right? He has no idea how part of the system works.
But Stephen, you both agree that asylum is a process that exists, and Stephen, you think it is in effect most of the time, and Luke, you think it's in effect very little of the time, but you both agree it exists. You both agree it's not perfect. You both agree it could be improved. And then you disagree about, like, to what extent is it ruptured. That's how I understand.
I think we both agree that asylum is a noun that starts with the letter A. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, so also this thing, I should just ditch Riverside. This is such bullshit. Like, it says the recording is still uploading. All right, I'm going to start again. I'm going to click record. It counts down. And then, Luke, I'll make sure that we wrap up before 3:30, okay?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. And by the way, Luke and I live like 10 minutes away from each other, apparently.
Cool. You need to get on that all red meat diet. It's really good for you, apparently.
Yeah. Okay.
Make sure they're only grass-fed, though, okay? Don't have the hormones.
So, Steven, I'm going to push you on the guns thing. You think it's not that important of an issue. I think it is. Why don't you think that it's important to regulate guns when there's all these school shootings? I mean, Luke brings up a good point. The Second Amendment's really important, but do you think the writers of the Constitution, when they wrote the Second Amendment, really had in mind automatic and semi-automatic weapons? Like, is it necessary for homeowners to have an AK-47?
I don't think my opinion is the Second Amendment drafters didn't give a fuck about personal right to own guns. I think that what they cared about were states being able to maintain their militias to fight against a corrupt federal government. The Bill of Rights was put in by the Federalists to convince the Anti-Federalists to join the federal government, and that's why it says in the Second Amendment, it references having state militias. I think that was the purpose of the Second Amendment, was to make it so that the federal Congress couldn't deprive a state of its ability to form a militia. So the right to the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. When it comes to guns, though, in the United States, I think the two biggest issues are people killing themselves. I think it's like 2/3 of like the gun deaths, and then it's like basically violent crime, gang related shit. I don't think school shootings are tragic and they're sad and they're bad, but in the grand scheme of things, I just don't think it's a huge deal in terms of all the other shit in the country.
It's pretty sad though if some kids get killed, right?
Yeah, sure, but it's even sadder when you're losing elections because you're trying to burn through so much political capital attacking guns, and there are so much more important things to go after, I think.
Okay. Luke, I want to challenge you on something. It's something that I've been wanting to ask Trump supporters, which is three things. So Trump's refusal to concede the election, past and future, him asking the Georgia senator for 11,000-ish votes, and him aggravating in some way. I just want to keep it as general as possible with January 6th. Like, I don't want to get into the weeds as to whether he legally incited an insurrection or not. I'm not as concerned with that, but just generally speaking, he aggravated the situation. So refusal to concede election, asking for 11,000 votes, and contributing to some problems on January 6th. Why is, like, to me, those are such big problems. Like, I can't get past those. Like, why? How do you and other Trump supporters kind of get past that? And trust the guy.
I mean, frankly, at the end of the day, to majority of Americans, that is on the back burner of a concern for them. And I say that because they're more concerned about being able to feed their families. They're more concerned about having a safe country. They're more concerned about the issues that directly impact them. And honestly, I don't think majority of Americans go so in depth with that stuff to entertain that, because we're more concerned about those things that will impact us on every day. I mean, the biggest thing for me that I've been impacted is I'm trying to buy a house. In the last 3 years, I went from, okay, I'm getting closer to a down payment, to I'm not even close now, because the increase in just how much life costs right now versus, or in addition to the increase that we've seen properties go up, I mean, I won't be able to afford a house for maybe 5+ years now, which hopefully still, someday, but those are the issues that I think Americans are more focused on. And I also make the argument that, if, even though I have a lot of views on January 6th, whether I think it was legitimized, whether I think there was some inside stuff going on, if this happened on the liberal side, I would not still be talking about it 4 years later. The reason why they talk about it so much is because they want to make the argument that it's such a big threat to democracy. They say it was the worst thing to happen, that it was worse than 9/11. I mean, that's insane. But if that happened 4 years ago, I wouldn't be bringing it up. The reason why they bring it up is because there's no other arguments. They can't see what Trump is doing. And with Trump, why I fight so hard and far for him is because he puts America first. What broke my heart was seeing that billions of dollars we sent to Ukraine, was seeing billions of dollars we're using towards illegal immigrants, but then we're seeing vets that served our country being kicked out of their own housing so that we can house illegals. We're seeing families that lost their entire livelihood from this hurricane given $750 if their application is accepted. That's not putting Americans first.
How do you feel about the fact that Donald Trump threatens to withhold FEMA aid from states, if that kind of stuff bothers you?
I mean, frankly, at this point, FEMA's broke. So what, FEMA's given so much money to illegal immigrants.
How do you feel about Donald Trump threatening to withhold aid from states because he's upset about it?
I think on both sides, there's things that I don't agree with.
How do you feel about Donald Trump threatening to withhold? You see how hard it is for you to just answer a question, right? How do you feel about Donald Trump threatening to withhold aid?
I just said I wouldn't agree with that.
You said both sides. No, you said both sides. I'm asking you, how do you feel? I'm not asking if you agree. I'm asking how you feel. How do you feel? How do you feel when Donald Trump says, you're saying you don't agree with that. I'm not asking if you agree. I'm asking, how do you feel? How does it make you feel?
You have an agenda you push.
I'm not pushing an agenda. I'm asking you, how do you feel about Donald Trump threatening to withhold aid and withholding aid from states? Yeah, from.
I said I wouldn't agree with that.
I didn't ask you if you agreed with that. I asked how you felt about it. How do you feel about Donald Trump withholding aid from California for wildfires? How do you feel about that?
He's saying he doesn't like it. You're saying you don't like it.
Yeah, when California was facing wildfires, how do you feel about Donald Trump saying, I'm not going to give them aid because they don't agree with me politically?
I can make with that, because I live in California, is these wildfires that we've been having, as terrible as they are, majority of them have been nowhere near civilians.
How do you feel about the fact that Donald Trump withholds aid from states if they don't play ball with him?
The liberals do the same exact thing.
Do you acknowledge that Roy Cooper, Brian Kemp, I think McMaster, and Ron DeSantis, do you acknowledge that all four of those governors said that Biden contacted them immediately after the last hurricane to provide aid?
Do I acknowledge that?
That they said that? All four governors?
I mean, if they said that, and I can see something that.
Okay, so when you say, can you give me a single example of Biden withholding? Can you give me Can you give me a single example of Biden withholding aid from a state for a natural disaster?
Withholding aid? I can give you examples of how they've failed at giving aid.
Can you give me a single example of Biden withholding aid?
They only give $750 to people that lost their entire livelihood.
Do you think all FEMA does is give $750 to people?
Traveling when we had wildfires in Hawaii. So what I'm saying is,
did Biden ever withhold aid? Did Biden ever withhold aid from any state?
What do you mean withhold aid? He gave,
as in, so for example, when Donald Trump's department only approved 1% of the aid that North Carolina asked for after the hurricane in 2016, when North Carolina only got 1% of their aid approved, or when Donald Trump denied aid for a few days to California because he didn't.
This is all you do is find the things that maybe he didn't do. Why aren't you looking at the things he did?
I'm looking at the things he did do this. He denied a thing. That's the thing that he did. He denied it. Presidents aren't supposed to deny. They're not supposed to play politics like that. You can't even give credit where
credit's due. He housed people at his residence in Florida that were being impacted by the hurricane. He was out on the grounds of people that were impacted by the hurricane. He was out there. You can't acknowledge that.
Who,
I can
Trump?
acknowledge if he. Yes. I can acknowledge if he withheld things.
What the fuck do I care if he's out on the ground trying to win votes?
Exactly. That's your thing. Is
who did Donald Trump help when he was out on
the
the ground? What are you talking about?
Okay, do you have another question, Jake? It's like he can't acknowledge.
I think Luke. Well, see what Luke is saying.
Hold on, wait. I'm actually curious. Wait, hold on. Did you graduate from college?
Did I graduate from college?
Yeah.
Did you graduate?
Yeah,
from college?
I did. I also think college is a waste of time.
Wait, when did you graduate from college?
2021.
Okay, you graduated from college 3 years ago, and you're 24 years old, and you're upset that you can't buy a house right now? Do you know everything you're saying is like fucking delusional?
Yeah,
like fantastic?
Because I've been working hard, and if our
how many 24-year-olds, like 2 or 3 years out of the full 4 year, how many of them can afford a house?
So I can't be successful.
I am an ageist. I hate young people.
You're ambitious.
No, it's just ridiculous, bro. It's just so crazy.
So I can't be successful at 24 years old.
I didn't say you can't be successful. I'm just saying that you weren't even shopping for houses under Trump, but you're like convinced it was easier to buy one then, and now you're like upset that you're 24. You're a couple years out of college.
Do you know that?
You could afford a house while you were in high school, while you were in college.
I was working. I work in real estate. I was working in commercial real estate, and I was working during college.
What do you mean you're working in commercial real estate? What does that mean?
I was working. I was a real estate agent. I don't know what more you want.
So when you say you were working in commercial real estate, what you really mean to say is you were a real estate agent that maybe showed an office or two and made like $5,000 in a year, maybe? What do you mean? You were working in commercial real estate? Yes, that's exactly what you mean.
You don't need a college degree to have your real estate license.
I didn't say you needed a college degree, but I'm saying that when you went from working in commercial real estate to just telling me that you were a realtor for some commercial properties, especially given how the commercial real estate was during COVID, my guess is you probably didn't make that much money. So I doubt you could have afforded a house back then.
Real estate during COVID was not as bad as it seems because I work in the one of the industrial capitals of this nation. So next up, Jake. He likes to.
So the places that had the most offices weren't impacted that much by COVID. Oh, crazy. Okay, all right.
I mean, look, it was pretty impressive. You can buy a house at 24. That's what I think. I think Steven's impressed.
Well, it's only because we live in a capitalist economy.
Yeah.
Next.
But Steven's point about FEMA. I mean, I think you're saying, Luke, that my personal hesitance towards Trump because of the rhetoric around not giving up, saying the truth for me is that it really pisses me off that he thinks he won the election when it was proven over and over and over again that he doesn't. And politics is so confusing about which policies are right and which ones actually benefit us. And that's why there's all this debate. That's why it's not that Republicans are right and Democrats are wrong. Like, there's a two-party system for a reason, is that we can't and we'll never get to the bottom of some of these issues. Should taxes be higher? Should taxes be lower? I don't know. What I do know is the guy's kind of an asshole because he refused to concede the election. He doesn't want to concede another election. And you can say, well, Bill Clinton did this and Kamala Harris did this, but no, it does seem to me that he is uniquely selfish and uniquely a liar.
I mean, I would say just, something that I think both sides lock on is all they do is point out the bad that individuals have done. Kamala has done some very terrible things. Kamala almost sent a mother to prison for truancy because her daughter was taken out of school because she had sickle cell anemia and she needed treatment.
The terrible things that Kamala has done is almost did something.
She prosecuted a single mother for treating her daughter with sickle cell anemia. She kept a man in prison who she knew was innocent, and she was forced to withhold the evidence to let him free. She has done terrible things. The thing is, the difference between her and Trump is he actually has good things to back him up. He has a good 4 years where our country was in a very great place for an average American.
4 years? We were in a great place in 2020?
So you would say he was responsible for the downfall of 2020 at the end of the year?
You said that we were in a great place for 4 years. Was the country in a great place during 2020?
Let me say three and a half years.
3 years. Okay, cool. There you go. Pandemic. Gotcha.
So she doesn't have anything to back her up. She has a failed record in California. She has a confusing stance that she stands on, whether she's starting to lean more conservative or she's super progressive. You know, she doesn't know if she's black one day or Indian one day. She fakes these accents, which drive me crazy, because if Trump did that, people would be attacking him. People would be all over him. Oh, that's terrible that he's talking in a Mexican.
You realize that Trump literally made fun of a guy with a disability, right? Like, he's literally on camera doing this, and you guys don't care. You have no standards for Donald Trump. Like, that's not true.
But again, that's pointing out something
like,
bad. What I'm getting at is she only has bad. She doesn't have
bad.
Good.
Yeah.
She doesn't have good things that she's done. She's been vice president for 3.5 years.
Speaking of vice president, why isn't Donald Trump running with the same vice president that he won the election with last time?
That's, again, a sidetrack.
Okay. Why is it that 40 out of 44 cabinet members from Trump's administration aren't endorsing her for president?
You don't have anything to back her up with. All you have is things why Trump is a bad man. You have no stand on why Kamala is the right choice.
Steven, why is Kamala the right choice?
You're not a pro-Kamala person.
Because I think Kamala's great for business. That's why I like Kamala.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm getting into commercial real estate. I think Kamala's policies are just
yeah, there you go. He doesn't have anything, so he's just proving that point.
Well, I'm just okay. Let's say I want to do. Okay, let's say that I want to go rent like a part of a building or whatever. What kind of loans would you recommend me, Luke?
Exactly. See,
what kind of loans would you recommend me? I'm just curious. Talk to me. What is? Recommend me something. Recommend me a loan. I'm just curious. What talk to me about what my finance would look like. What would it look like? What's the best way for me to finance a building? Tell me. I'm just curious.
That answer was the best thing I could hear.
I just want to know. You got the background in commercial real estate. Tell me. What would I?
Again, you have nothing to stand on. Yeah. You're just proving my point. You have nothing to stand on. All you do is hate Trump.
Come on, Steven. Why do you want to vote for Kamala? Why should you vote for Kamala? We got 2 days.
I hate spoiled kids with rich mom and dads who haven't put in a real day's work in their entire life. That's why. So
he's choking. He has nothing.
Do you like your policies?
What policies?
Do you want me to answer? The actual answer is, one is Kamala's proven that she's competent to hold office. She won her election for district attorney, and then from there she won the election for attorney general in California, and then she won re-election for attorney general. When Kamala Harris, from there she won election to become a senator for California, and then she was on the ticket with Biden to be vice president. So in terms of getting elected and being popular enough to get re-elected, it seems like she has a good track record there. When it comes to policies, I mean, she's the vice president. Vice president can't pass policies, so I would probably look to the administration that she's a part of. I'd look at the Biden administration, and I would see that the Biden administration basically succeeded in every area where Donald Trump failed. They were able to get some concessions from Mexico for border policy. Donald Trump got none, even though he said they were going to build a wall and they'll pay for it. They didn't pay for it, and he didn't build the wall. Biden passed a massive infrastructure bill. Donald Trump said, we're going to do infrastructure. Donald Trump didn't. He failed. Biden did. Donald Trump said that we were going to bring manufacturing back from China. He didn't. All he did was he tariffed people, and then he had to bail out our farmers because of how horrible and catastrophic these tariffs were. He brought nothing back. All he did was increase costs for consumers. Biden took the same problem and he said, I'm going to pass the CHIPS Act. And he started to get manufacturing in the country for microprocessors. Donald Trump said he was going to stop wars and end wars, and he didn't. He didn't do anything about Ukraine. He abandoned allies in the Middle East, the Kurdish people, to our own allies, the Turkish, and watched them get slaughtered. And then he basically surrendered the U.S. forces to the Taliban in Afghanistan. And then he increased and obfuscated drone strikes in Yemen. When Biden came into office, he followed through, despite how catastrophic the agreement was, he followed through on the Afghanistan pullout, got us out of the country. He pulled us out of the Saudi-led coalition that was going on against Yemen for the drone strikes. And he is being good at supporting countries like Israel and Ukraine from afar without getting us directly involved. I mean, I don't know. What part do you want to, like, the Democrats are the Democrats have done so well that Trump has tried to take credit for things that they've not only done, but that he's tried to destroy. Donald Trump comes out and says things like, I hate price controls, but you better believe he lives at $35 insulin cap. Donald Trump comes out on his first day in office, and just because of McCain manages to fail to pull the plug on the ACA, he even goes to the Supreme Court afterwards and gets shot down. What does he say now? I like pre-existing conditions, right? So this idea that like if I like Donald Trump's anything that he's done, anything he wants to take credit for now, they're just things that happen under Democrats, right? This guy earlier says his most important thing that he cares about is food and health, and the only guy that he can cite that's actually trying to ban the bullshit that he cares about was Gavin Newsom, who's a goddamn Democratic governor. So no, like, why the would I ever vote for Trump in any case here? Biden has succeeded on every single level and destroyed Donald Trump on every single thing that he tried to achieve. So
Luke, where's Stephen wrong?
Well, first off, all he did was list things that Biden did. All he did was, when listing Kamala's achievements, he just said, well, she won this, she won that, she won that.
I think he said Trump didn't get concessions from Mexico. That was like right?
But I'm not talking about Trump at all right now. I'm talking about he can't give reasons why he backs Kamala of things that she's actually done. When I asked him directly, what has she done? All he said was, she won this, she won this, she won this. Biden did this, Biden did this, Biden did this. She has been the face of Biden's presidency this whole time. She has had more say in this administration than any vice president that we've had before. And you're telling me that she can't push for these things? She's the president's right-hand man, right-hand woman.
She's not the what do you think the job of the vice president is?
Why didn't she do better on the border, Stephen? Why did she fail?
The border is not her job. What do you mean?
Then why was she the border czar?
She was not the border czar. Kamala Harris was put in charge of trying to secure concessions from other countries to process immigrants in those countries before coming to the United States. And you know what? We managed to do that. There are now processing centers in places in Central America and in Mexico for immigrants that are trying to seek asylum in the United States. We were successful in that. But Kamala Harris is not solely put in charge of the border.
What has Kamala Harris done that justifies her reasoning to be president? She's a joke.
Okay.
What? You can't answer it. She hasn't done anything.
What? She was part of an administration. She wants to continue the policies of that administration. That's what I would support. I just said it.
Is that fair, Luke? So your point was that Stephen rattled off a bunch of stuff that Biden did, and you're saying, well, that's not Kamala, and Stephen's saying, well, it was Kamala. She was in that administration, so she should get credit for that to some extent, right? What do you think?
Well, then would she get credit for the crazy influx in prices that we're seeing? Would she get credit for the? What
do you think was the biggest driver of increase in prices? What do you think caused prices to increase?
Would she get credit for the 13 soldiers of our nation that died coming back from Afghanistan?
You know that more. Wait. Do you know that more soldiers died in Afghanistan under Trump than under Biden?
But
do you know that? Do you know that more soldiers died? Do you know that more soldiers died under Trump than under Biden?
That's all you.
Do you know that more? Do you know that? You don't know that. Yeah.
You literally have Trump derangement.
There's a gap here.
You have Trump derangement syndrome.
Hold on. There's a gap here. So Luke is pointing out 13 soldiers died. And I think Stephen, what you're doing is you're acknowledging that those people died. And then the next point you say is, well, more died under Trump, which I think is a valid point. But in missing that middle step of acknowledging, it sounds, Luke, like Stephen's using a red herring to get away from the point, whereas he's actually acknowledging it. He's saying, yeah, 13, but guess what? In the grand, that's not that much big of a number. I think that's what he's saying.
At the end of the day, what it comes down to is there's one side that advocates for our citizens and for this country and the people of this country, and there's a side that doesn't, and that's the Liberal Party. I mean, I brought up all these examples. I brought up the drastic increase we're seeing of kids diagnosed with autism. I brought up innocent Americans that were killed by illegal immigrants. I brought up 13 soldiers that were killed from Afghanistan. I brought up all these things that are happening, all these people that are dying and getting these horrific things. And Stephen has nothing to say. Stephen is the guy that was basically cheering when Corey was shot and killed by the guy trying to assassinate Donald Trump. Stephen doesn't have a value on life like many Americans do. He's just pushing for the agenda that his party is pushing, and he can't even support and stand up for Kamala because at the end of the day, she's a joke, and all she has is this agenda that she's pushing and that she's put on all of her followers that don't even know why they support her.
Final thoughts, Stephen? And then we can wrap.
Just this conversation just blew my mind like a Trump rally.
All right. Okay. Thanks. I really appreciate you guys doing this. I hope, I thought this was great. I think these long form, in-depth discussions are important. I know it got heated, but, at least you guys are both pro-gun, right? So.
Well, we'll all have to be in the upcoming Civil War when the conservatives deny the next election results and want to go and kill everybody. So, yeah.
I'm going to end this recording and let's just take 2 seconds because here we go. Okay, so